You know that feeling? You're part of a big diversity, equity, and inclusion push. There's a ton of energy at the start, but then it just fizzles, and nothing really changes. It's super frustrating, right? Well, what if I told you there's a map for this whole journey? One that shows exactly where things go wrong, and more importantly, how to get them right. Let's get into it.
So that's the big question we're tackling today. Why do our best efforts to create more equitable spaces get stuck? You know, we have the mission statements, we run the workshops, but the actual culture, it just doesn't budge. It feels like we're just spinning our wheels. Let's find out why.
Okay, this right here, this is the key. It's called the Community Thriving Spectrum, and it's going to be our guide. I want you to think of it like a diagnostic tool, a map. Over on the left, you've got total exclusion, and as you move to the right, you get all the way to a place of real, authentic, shared power. We're going to use this map to pinpoint exactly where so many organizations get stuck, and, this is the important part, how we can get them unstuck.
So here's our plan. First, we'll look at the very beginning of the journey. Then, we're going to expose something called the progressivism trap. It's a really dangerous spot where good intentions just get lost. After that, we'll get a clear picture of the destination, what thriving actually looks like. And finally, how you can use this spectrum to make a real difference.
All right, let's start at the beginning. Every journey has a starting point, and for this one, that starting point is defined by inequity. We're going to look at the first two stages here, exclusion and tolerance. This is where power is held tight by just a few. So at the very beginning, you've got these two stages. Stage 1, exclusion, is pretty straightforward. The door is slammed shut on certain groups. In Stage 2, tolerance, well, the door is cracked open a bit. People are tolerated, but only if they fit into the norms set by the dominant group. In both cases, and this is really the key here, one group is making all the rules and deciding who gets to belong.
Okay, pay close attention because we've now arrived at the most critical and honestly the most deceptive part of this map. It's called the progressivism trap. This is where so many well-meaning organizations get completely bogged down. On the surface, it really looks like progress, but underneath, it's a sneaky cycle that protects the status quo.
So what is this trap exactly? It's a concept called false progressivism. It's basically when a person or a whole organization talks a big game about supporting equity, but when push comes to shove, they're really just protecting their own comfort and their own power. It's all performance without any real change to the system.
Here is a perfect real-world example of what that looks like. Imagine an executive who is all over social media, championing diversity. But then, in actual meetings, he constantly talks over or dismisses the ideas from women of color. See, his public posts act like a shield, making him look good, while behind the scenes, he's reinforcing the very power structures he claims to be against. It's the classic case of not walking the talk. Now, this trap has two different phases. First, you've got compliance. This is the bare minimum stage. It's treating equity like a checklist to get done. Then, things can move to the responsive stage, which feels like progress. People in power are listening, maybe they're making some small adjustments. But, and this is a huge but, they still hold all the final decision-making power. They're basically just managing change, not actually giving up any control. So, how can you tell if your organization is stuck in this trap? Well, here are a few dead giveaways. Does all the equity work feel a little too safe for the people in charge? Is there a lot of activity, a lot of meetings, but the day-to-day culture isn't really shifting? Are marginalized groups constantly being asked for their opinion in surveys and focus groups, but never given any actual power or resources? Yeah, if you're nodding along to these, you're probably in the trap.
Okay, enough about the problem, enough about the trap. Let's talk about the solution. What are we actually trying to get to? What does that final destination, Stage 5, authentic thriving, really look like?
Just take a look. Authentic thriving isn't about just inviting a few more people into a house that's already built. It's about everyone getting together to redesign and rebuild the house from the ground up. Power isn't just shared, it's truly redistributed. Leadership isn't just diverse, it's co-created with the very communities who are most impacted. It's a totally different way of doing things.
And this chart just makes the difference so incredibly clear. In the compliance trap, you might get a few token hires. But in a thriving culture, you get leadership that's co-created. You go from symbolic feedback surveys to actual shared decision-making. You stop just meeting the minimum legal rules and start co-designing policies that are built for justice. The leap is huge.
And this quote just hits the nail on the head. Real equity is not a gift that's handed down from those in power. It is something that all people get to shape together.
That one shift in thinking, from giving to co-creating, that is everything. That is the key that unlocks authentic thriving.
Okay, so this map is pretty powerful, right? We get the traps, we see the destination, so now what? How do we actually put this thing to use? Let's make it super practical.
Let's bring this down to earth with a real-world example, a school. In a school that's stuck in compliance culture means, putting up some posters for a Heritage Month. But in a thriving school, it means every single person has a deep, protected sense of belonging. In one, student voice means a survey that gets filed away. In the other, real power is shared with students and families to actually write the school's policies. You see the massive difference?
So how do we break out of the trap? Here are 4 concrete actions. Number 1, don't just ask for feedback, transfer actual power. 2, don't just tweak the existing system, redesign it with the people it affects the most. 3, choose accountability over the comfort of people in power. And 4, focus on doing the real hard work, not just looking good.
And as we wrap up, it's so important to remember this. This spectrum, it's not a weapon. It's not for shaming people or putting them in a box. It's a tool for growth. The goal isn't to magically jump to perfect overnight. The real goal is just progress, taking one deliberate step and then another, moving our communities toward a future where everyone can truly, genuinely thrive.
So I'm going to leave you with a question to chew on. Take a look at this map and think honestly. Where does your organization, your school, your community, where do you all stand on this journey? And even more importantly, what's one single step, maybe a small one, maybe a big one, that you can take to help move things forward toward authentic thriving for everyone?